Hey everybody, it's Janice with Creating Through Chaos, and today we're going to take that snowman palette that we made and turn it into a scarecrow on the other side. The first thing I did was cut the snowman scarf so that it wasn't wrapped around the back anymore. I just trimmed the edges and glued it on to each side. If you haven't seen the video for the snowman craft, check out the link below and it will bring you there. The first thing I did was cut a large paint stick from Lowe's at the same size as the snowman's brim on his hat. Then I took the paint stick and drew myself a straight line of where I wanted to separate the top from the bottom. And I pretty much just followed the exact thing I did with the snowman palette. I painted the top half brown, and I used acrylic paint in burnt umber. And this is done on just an old piece of pallet wood. My brother works at a place that gets lots of pallets, and I take them home and I just cut them apart using a Sawzall. Next thing I did was paint the brim. And I also just painted that using acrylic paint in burnt umber also. And I made sure that I did the sides and the back because this sign is going to be reversible. So you're going to be able to see, if you peer down, you'll be able to see the back of the brim of both sides. So I wanted to make sure it looked finished. And I made sure I got all of my edges. Then I took an antique white, also in acrylic paint, and I painted from the brown area all the way down. I didn't do the edges because the edges were already white from the snowman. And I don't mind if there's knots in my wood. I actually think it just gives it character and makes it look more rustic. So I don't mind using wood that has knots or all kinds of dings in them. I think it's just part of the project. Once I finished that, I glued the paint stick onto the brim of the hat, and then I drew 2 teardrop shapes and for his eyes, and then a triangle for his nose, and then just kind of a squiggly line, I guess you'd call it, for his mouth. I took a paint marker and colored in the eyes with black. And then I took some magenta or like a pink color, you could use any color you'd like, and I used a paintbrush and I brushed off most of the paint and I just put a little blush on each one of his cheeks, just lightly dabbing the paint, and then I kind of ran my finger and a Q-tip in it to kind of remove some of the paint and kind of give it a faded look, as you can see. Then I took the paint marker again and I drew out his mouth. As you can see, it's just a squiggly line, and I did the 2 little circles on his, half circles on his cheeks. Next, I painted his nose to look like a candy corn. So in my triangle, I put 2 separate lines to separate it into 3 different pieces. And for this, I'm going to use yellow, orange, and white. So for the very top, I did white. And I brought it just to that line. And I used just acrylic paint. Again, nothing spectacular, no special paints. And I made sure it was all filled in very well. And the next color I did was orange, and I did that right below the white, and I also did that to the line that I drew for that. The next one I did was yellow, and I did that for the bottom, just like a real candy corn looks. And I went back and touched up all of the colors. I touched up the white and the orange and the yellow to make sure that they were filled in and colored real well. Let me see how good they came out. I made sure that was really dry before I moved on to my next steps of painting. Then I took the black paint marker and I just drew around the nose and on the lines that I drew just to separate the colors and give it more definition. Next, I took a small paintbrush and I'm going to do the same thing I did to his eyes as I did to the snowman. So I just added a small thin line on either side of his eye. Then I took a pencil and I dipped it in white paint and added his eyeballs or pupils. And then I added some eyebrows, just 2 small lines above his eyes. And look how cute he came out. He's looking adorable already. Then I grabbed some fabric and I'm going to cut him a scarf as well. So I just cut a thin layer of the fabric that I had. You can pick any color you want. I happen to have this flannel-like looking plaid fabric. I didn't really do anything special. I just cut a strip and I tied a knot in the center of it. And then I glued it to each side after I cut it to size. And I just used hot glue to glue it in place. And oh my God, look how cute he is. Then I used those flowers that we got at the Dollar Tree. They're just small sunflowers. And I just took some different kinds of ribbon that I had and some raffia. And I just kind of tied them together in the center after I cut a bunch of them. And I glued them to the brim of the hat. And then I put a sunflower over the top of that. And it came out adorable. I just love the way it looks. I trimmed down what I didn't want there. You know how we always have to mess with bows. And touch up some of the brown paint. Now that it's fully dry, you can kind of see some of the palette coming. So I took a little bit of burlap ribbon and I just cut a square to put up in the top of his hat. And then I cut a small square of the fabric that matches his scarf. And I just set that on top. And then I glued both pieces down. And then I had a button and I wanted to glue that on. So I glued that with a couple of small pieces of raffia. And I glued the button to the center. Just kind of gave it a more defined look. I absolutely love the way he turned out. Now this sign can be used from fall all the way through even January, because snowmen you can keep out almost all winter. So now the sign has dual purposes. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to sprinkle and be sure to check out how to make the pallet snowman. Thank you for watching.